Hello Dr. Humans, welcome back to the channel and today's video where we are going to unpack how to discuss multifactorial dyspnea in your long case discussion. Let's do this. So this one is common. If you think about the typical general medical patient with dyspnea, it's often multifactorial, right? There might be some heart failure, some COPD, maybe a chest infection, thromboembolic disease, anemia, obesity, all of the above, the list goes on, right? And of course, dyspnea when present is one of those things that makes it right to the top of the issues list because it's a huge source of morbidity and mortality. But when it comes to discussing your ideas around breathlessness in your long case, we can sometimes get a little jumbled, maybe a bit flighty with our ideas. And so what I wanted to do today was to give you an example structure of something you might use to sound oh so polished in your long case. And for this video, I really wanted to give credit to Dr. Julia Sewell, who is a consultant rheumatologist now and one of our very talented all-stars at Rock Your Long Case. She described this recently in an education session that we ran together and I thought it was pure gold and wanted to share it with y'all. So I'm going to pass on the message today, but I wanted to credit Julia for these ideas. Now, before we get into how to discuss multifactorial dyspnea, I wanted to give you another little hack for your long case discussions at large, and that is the tree and branch model for answering long case questions. And the trees and branch structure works really well when you have a list of things you'd like to tackle. For example, risk factors of a condition, or a list of differential diagnosis, or barriers to adherence, something like that. So you have a list of things, that's the trees, and then how you would approach the things, that's the branches. So the branches might be your investigations and management plans, pharmacological, non-pharmacological, and when you articulate your trees and branches to the examiners, you'll let them know all of the trees first, then you'll just tackle each tree one by one, going through all of those branches, and it sounds amazing. So for example, if you were talking about falls risk for your long case patient, you could say, I have identified the following risk factors for falls in Jenny: peripheral neuropathy, impaired vision, and postural hypotension. With regards to the peripheral neuropathy, I would, and then you go into how you would evaluate that condition, assess the underlying cause, how are you going to optimize their mobility, etc, etc. Then next, you talk about the impaired vision, progress your ideas, postural hypotension, progress your ideas. So for something like falls risk, this works really well, and it's very straightforward to just run through your list and execute on the list. But for multifactorial dyspnea, there are overlapping concepts and investigations, mainly because the heart and lungs are connected, right? So if you make a list of causes of breathlessness and then you work through them, you might find that some of the investigations overlap, right? There are multiple reasons to have a chest x-ray, for example, and then you find yourself repeating yourself and getting all tangled up as you discuss it. So what Julia does to overcome this issue is pure genius. In this scenario, she makes the trees into systems and the branches into differentials within that system. And then there's more branches that sort out the diagnosis within that system. So let me show you an example script. I'm very concerned about the symptom of dyspnea in Jenny, especially as this is a key threat to her independence and quality of life currently. With regards to the possible underlying cause of her dyspnea, my impression is that this is likely multifactorial, and I have several differentials that I would like to explore, encompassing respiratory causes and cardiac causes. I'd also be keen to explore more simple causes such as anemia. With regards to the potential respiratory causes, Jenny is an ex-smoker with a background of COPD, and my examination findings today would tend to support this diagnosis. I also note the history of hemoptysis in Jenny, and I'd be very keen to explore the possibility of infection or, of course, underlying malignancy. I'd like to evaluate her pulmonary system by reviewing, first of all, her recent blood tests, in particular looking at her white cell count and CRP, which may be elevated in the setting of infection. I'd like to review a recent sputum microbiology sample, as well as review her recent chest x-rays looking for any evidence of infection or malignancy on those films. I'd also be interested in reviewing Jenny's recent pulmonary function test to ascertain the severity of her COPD and compare these findings to previous results over time. Depending on my findings with those preliminary investigations, if there was still no clear cause, I would next evaluate Jenny with a CT chest for a more detailed evaluation for underlying infection, malignancy, or some other less likely causes. With regards to potential cardiac causes of her breathlessness, whilst Jenny was euvolemic today on examination with no clinical evidence of overt heart failure, she does have significant risk factors for ischemic heart disease, including diabetes, which may predispose her to silent ischemia. And the dyspnea she describes is predominantly exertional. I'd be keen to further evaluate her cardiac system by first performing an ECG, looking for any previous ischemic insults, and assessing the rate and rhythm. I'd also like to perform a transthoracic echocardiogram to review her ventricular function and assess for any wall motion abnormalities. From there, I would next consider a cardiac stress test, which, given Jenny's poor mobility at present, would be a pharmacological stress test. And in addition to these measures, I would like to further evaluate Jenny for any causes of breathlessness such as anemia. I note that she is pale on examination today. I'd like to review her most recent hemoglobin levels and perform further tests if she was found to be anemic. So that's just an example to illustrate the trees and branches as applied to systems. Of course, you're going to work through those branches, addressing them as you would in clinical practice. And you might also choose to start off with anemia, for example, as it's a real simple, low-hanging fruit. You might want to tick that off the list first, and that's absolutely fine. Here, I addressed that last because I'd already mentioned it to the examiners as a bullet point at the start, so they knew I was thinking about it and I was going to get there. But I would generally advise you do simple things first, of course. But either way, if you use this model with the trees and branches and make the trees the body systems, it's going to sound so good regardless. And of course, when you are using these trees and branches, ideally you're going to be brainstorming these in your thinking time before you see the examiners. So you have those trees and all the branches written out in front of you in your issues list at large, so you're not having to think of that list on the spot and memorise it. And remember that a key part of shining in your long case is to individualise your thoughts to your long case patient. So when you do these trees and branches, make sure that you are only including things that you truly think apply to your patient. I don't want you given some generic list of differentials for breathlessness that really don't make sense in your patient. I want you to be thinking about the most likely causes, based on what you found in your history, examination, the risk factors your patient has, and any relevant comorbidities that are tangled up there. We do not want to sound generic, okay? We want to be referencing our specific long case patient throughout the discussion and providing an individualised assessment and management plan. And that's nothing to be scared of, right? You are doing this already in your clinical practice. You are already narrowing things down and coming to your own conclusions and individualising your care plan to your patient in your clinical practice. So just do what you would do in your clinical practice. And what we're doing here is really just giving you a structure in which to do that sounds really good every single time. So that was how to discuss multifactorial dyspnea really well in your long case discussion using the tree and branch model. I really hope that helped you as you work towards your clinical exam. Be sure to put that into practice this week, and I would love to hear if it helps in the comments below. And of course, if you would like to up-level your long case game this briefcase season, be sure to sign up for Rock Your Long Case 2024. Past students have told us that it was our course more than any other that helped them to pass their long cases on exam day. And this is the only long case course which offers small group coaching to help you do just that. In this program, we give you 8 weeks of incredible content covering a whole heap of conditions: renal, transplant, rheumatology, general medicine, including diabetes, obesity, chronic pain, depression, falls, osteoporosis, and so much more. All of our content is designed to be enjoyable and integrated into doctor life so that you'll actually enjoy the process. Spots are extremely limited at this stage. This year, I will be running it as a container. There will be no on-demand version, so if you want to be there, I highly recommend signing up today whilst you still can. So if that sounds like something you need in your life, then go ahead, click that link and sign up for Rock Your Long Case 2024. And did you know that we have a whole playlist here on YouTube dedicated to helping you pass your long case? You can also grab that link below. Thank you so much for joining me today, and be sure to stay tuned here on YouTube for some more clinical exam goodies. I'll see you next week. Bye!